Ever wonder what it takes to live a life creatively? So do we. That's why we're here. To find out what clever people are doing to be successful in the arts. I'm Cecily Korst, and this is the Trailer Talks. We're interviewing artists and educators, entrepreneurs, and musicians at home and on the road. Come along, it's going to be a fun trip. Hey, welcome to the trailer. Come on in. Today we're in the trailer with Marion Kerr, an actress living in Los Angeles, and we're talking about her creative life. Describe your journey to this point.
That's a big question. I guess I feel like a career in the arts in some way was sort of inevitable, because I feel like, you know, my sister and I were exposed to a lot of artistic things growing up. We went to see a lot of theater with my parents, and, you know, saw a lot of old movies, and, you know, and to a lot of museums and traveled, and so I felt like the arts were always sort of like, you know, there in my face. And just as a kid, you know, our parents just had us do a lot of creative things. We were constantly putting on plays and shows, like in the living room, or, you know, at school, or in my backyard, or, you know, kind of whatever. And so I felt like I always was sort of gravitating, you know, specifically towards theater, but just kind of anything artistic. I used to write a lot when I was a kid. I had my own newspaper when I was a kid called the Marion Times.
Cool.
Which was pretty awesome, which, you know, talked about local events that was happening in my house, you know, like a cat got lost or whatever. It was like front page of the Marion Times. My mom used to have us do this thing when we were kids where we had to write down, from the time we were 5 up until we were 17, what we wanted to be when we grew up. And she had this theory that, like, if you, whatever you wanted to be when you were 10 is what you really are supposed to be, because you're at that kind of, that sort of tipping point between, you're sort of past the, like, princess fairy ballerina phase, and like, but you know, you have sort of a sense of what the world is like and what you might be interested in. And when I was 10, I wrote that I wanted to be either an actress or a journalist, and so I feel pretty good about it. So I feel like I, you know, sort of in some ways I've kind of been doing both, in the sense of, you know, both writing and performing. So I think my mom was right. And then when I went to college, I majored in drama, thinking that's probably what I was going to do and be interested in, but I just wasn't really sure until you're kind of in it and doing things with, like, other people who take it as seriously as you do. And then I loved it, and I just kind of never looked back after that. And yeah, both in acting and directing and writing, and I just, you know, I love it all so much that I've just been kind of doing it ever since.
So what's the creative process like for you?
I think it depends on what it is that I'm doing. I think it's very different if you're an actor, a writer, or being a director. I feel like for me as an actor, it's just, you know, getting as immersed I can into whatever character I'm doing. I write a lot in general anyway, so usually I tend to, like, keep journals for my characters and sort of write about their life before, during, and after the point that I'm, you know, performing their story in. But I feel as a writer, it's a bit more technical. You know, you're kind of thinking more about structure and beginning, middle, and end, and you're not solely thinking about everything through your character's point of view, which I think as an actor you sort of can help do that. And directing is the same thing. You're really keeping your eye on the big picture, you know, and like what is the narrative of the story, what is the drama of it, you know, and how can I best show that visually, you know? Yeah, and you know, keeping very well aware that you're in a visual medium. I'm working in a visual medium, you know, so trying to make relationships and you know, themes of whatever it is that you're working on very clear visually, in addition to what the actors are doing, the talking, and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think it really depends on what it is that I'm working on.
Have you ever seen Rebel Without a Cause?
Yeah.
It was Sarah's favorite movie. And we always used to do the part where James Dean says, "Is this where you live?" And Natalie Wood says, "Who lives?" If she was James Dean, I'd be Natalie Wood.
So as a writer, when you're telling that story, do you write the story? Does the story find you?
A little bit of both. I feel like I usually have a sense of what I want to do when I'm starting, but yeah, more often than not, you just sort of like, oh, this is happening, you know? And you have that check, like, should this be happening? Just because, you know, just because these things happen organically doesn't necessarily mean they're a good idea, you know? So sometimes I'll be like, oh, this is great, and, you know, you'll walk away from it and come back a couple days later and you'll be like, oh my god. No, Marion, no, no, no. So I guess I try and be as open as possible, you know. So if you have an idea, run with it, and you know, see where it takes you, but be fully prepared to, you know, tell yourself that was not a good idea, and you know, so kind of go back and forth. But I feel like I'm very organized when it comes to writing, so I feel like I like having as much mapped out ahead of time as possible. But I also like the fun of just writing, and it's kind of like I'm watching it as I'm writing it, like what's going to happen next, like try and keep that sense of fun going, you know, because that's what I think is so enjoyable about reading a good book or watching a movie, or, you know, if it's gripping, if it's good drama, you're always kind of like, what's going to happen next, you know? And you don't really want to lose that even as the writer, you know, because then it's not fun for anybody, you know? You want to make it fun.
So who's your biggest supporter? Who's your biggest advocate?
My family. Yeah, I mean, that's, you know, my parents and my sister are by far my biggest supporters. Which I feel so fortunate to have, because I know there are a lot of artists and creative people that do not have their family support, you know, and you know what I mean? So they're critical of me too, which is great, you know. And my sister's the exact same way. Like, you know, she's also an actor, so you know, we see each other's stuff a lot, and yeah, but we're just the biggest fans and the biggest champions of each other, and I'm very, very lucky. Yeah.
So what's it like working with her? Because I don't know that I could work with my little sister.
We got a lot of that. I felt like people on set were kind of like, is this gonna be cool? Is this gonna, you know? And honestly, we didn't know, because you know, as long as you know, we've both been actors for a while, and yeah, we had never worked together professionally, and so we were a little nervous about it as well. Like, we hope this is okay. I know we were playing sisters in the film that we were acting opposite each other in, and I think the first time we read through it, we just laughed, because we were watching each other, you know, act, and we were just like, you know, like, basically, like, you're doing it, you're doing the thing, yeah. So, like, once that immaturity passed us, it was actually really great. I think that the harder challenge was that we were both producers on the film, so I think working together as producers was more difficult than working with each other as actors, because I think actually as actors we have very similar working habits. So once we got past the whole, like, you know, ridiculousness of what we were doing, it was a great experience, you know, because, you know, very similar methods, and we, you know, both really wanted to do, we were playing real life characters, so we, you know, were very committed to trying to do them justice and all that. And as producers, we just, it's where our personalities diverge, you know, like just how people are, you know, how they accomplish tasks, how they communicate with people. We're just a little different that way in terms of style. So that was where I think we had more conflict than as actors. But, you know, the acting part of it, we were like, yeah, we would totally do this again. This was great.
So what was this past year's pinch me moment for you?
Oh, man, I think, well, there was two. I think the biggest, I mean, I think, you know, performing with my sister is probably one of them. And then another film I did, got into the feature I did, had gotten into the Cannes film market. And you know, the director had emailed me, like, this is, you know, this is the theater it's going to be playing at, and this is the time and day it's going to be playing at the Cannes Festival in France. And that was really exciting, you know, and none of us could go, you know, so we were just kind of like, oh, all right, cool, hope that works out. But it was just kind of like, oh, today we're playing in France, you know, like, that's kind of cool. But you know, that's such a prestigious market. It was nice to have something that you did play in it.
That's really cool.
It was pretty cool.
Wow. Yeah, that would definitely qualify as a pinch me.
Yeah, it was, yeah. Even from LA, I was like, oh, pinch me. Something cool's happening in France right now.
So, what have been your keys to success so far?
Well, I've been really lucky, so that's one for sure. Which is just a terrible answer. But it's true. I think one of the biggest keys has definitely been creating your own work, which I think is important for any actor, whether it is as a writer or producer or director. I feel like, you know, I feel like I started to do it a little bit early on, because when I graduated from college, a bunch of us moved to LA. We didn't know anybody, we didn't know anything, but we'd been in class for like 4 years nonstop, so I felt like we just started, and I had gone to the New York Film Academy, so we just started making our own short films just because we didn't really know what else to do with ourselves, you know. We were like, well, we did all this work and studied really hard, and now nobody wants us, you know. So we were like, well, we'll just kind of make our own films, and you know, and I think that sort of, you know, started the idea that you don't have to sit around and wait for the phone to ring, which I think is kind of deaf in any field, but definitely if you're an actor, it's pretty much deaf as well. So I think putting yourself out there and creating your own work. I also think being a multi-hyphenate is really good, you know, so if you can do something other than just the thing that you really want to do, you know, if you love being an actor, that's great, and, but, you know, I think it's good to sort of dabble in producing, perhaps writing, or, you know, things like that, because I feel like it's important to work, because work begets work.
That was a peek inside of Marion's creative life. You can find out more about Marion on IMDb, YouTube, Vimeo, and at her website, marionkerr.com. I'm Cecily Course for the Trailer Talks. Till next time.